Hey, welcome back to Mirror Expressions, a channel where I take the time to share a little bit of myself with you all through my thoughts, my perceptions, my viewpoints. And I invite y'all to come on in and do the same with me. Go ahead, hit that thumbs up button, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know how you are doing by putting a mirror emoji in the chat. If you are, you're great. You're awesome. I'm doing fantabulous. I'm letting y'all know up front. And if you're not, as always, I encourage you to do what you must to get back to a healthier you. All right, y'all. We are part 3 of this reunion, Married to Medicine. We left off with the men talking to Andy. Kieran had just said, if he had known quicker or sooner that, would he have apologized quicker if he realized how serious Eugene was affected by their moving joke? And the man said no. He said joking about it just kind of trivialized things so that it wouldn't be so serious, right? So Andy asked Eugene, well, who's your wife's best friend on the show? So he says, Simone. So Andy asks, well, if Cecil and Simone had done the same thing, being that they're the closest to you all, how would they have made you feel? And Eugene said, I would still have been pissed. So it wasn't necessarily who done it. It's the fact of what was done, basically. You know what I'm saying? That's the point they were trying to get across. And so Cecil ends up speaking up on it or whatever. And he said he did think it was creative. He thought it was funny because remember he was laughing. He was getting a little hee out of it when it happened. But he said, after speaking to Eugene, he saw things from his point of view. And so that's where he left it, poor, it was in poor taste, you know what I'm saying? So he just said he kind of left it alone at that point. So Eugene said it was just, for him, it was how Kieran just kept at it. Like, y'all know, again, Kieran was standing 10 toes down in it. So Curtis then calls Eugene out, though. He was just like, you've said some things that have been not so nice, too. And so we see a flashback of when Curtis and Jackie were going through their thing when Curtis had cheated. And we see Eugene making a joke about that. You know what I'm saying? And Curtis said, compare what Eugene said compared to Kieran and Anila dressing up as movers, that what they did was benign compared to what Eugene had said about his marriage. So they then move on to Toya becoming all emotional and saying that, she was feeling lonely or whatever. And so Andy asked Eugene about that. And Eugene was just, saying that of the last 2 years, especially with C-19 running just rampant, he just said he was basically too busy trying to save the world. And probably also trying to save his family by not coming into contact with them as much, being that he spent a lot of time at the hospital in the midst of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so it just took him away from his family in a way that they had never, ever known. I'm saying it just caused him not to be as present. And so a viewer then asked the men, would they end up getting the P shot, right? So we see the women in the back. The P shot is supposed to be like equivalent to what the women got, the O shot. So Curtis said he would, you know what I'm saying? And the man Jack was just like, he lied. Y'all know these men out here be big babies. They ain't gonna get nothing. And then Scott went on to talk about how he actually administers the shot too. And so he started describing it as like, I think he said like a series of 6 little shots. And so Eugene tried to compare it to shots that he has had to give in patients' penises as well. And he's just like, no, ain't no way. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. And so Scott was just like, it's not that bad. It's not that bad as what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? So in the bag, all we hear is Toya talking about, hell, we have babies. We get butt injections. We get breast implants. We do this. We do that. And y'all can't get no little bitty shots. Y'all can't get 6 little shots. I said, oh, she want Eugene to go get them shots so he can grow their penis. She said that she ain't realized wouldn't grow anymore after being married to him. So anyway, that was basically it. Cecil said he wasn't going either. Eugene had already said he wasn't going. Andy then asked the men, you know, why they didn't take Kieran up on his Botox shots, you know, when he had his get together at his practice, and he offered the men Botox injections. And so I think it was Curtis said, you know, basically that's just not what you see within the male species of the Black community. Like, we don't do that. Kieran surprisingly said that amongst his male population, the Black men are his biggest customers, though, when it comes to getting Botox injections. I don't know if I believe that one. I'm kind of with Curtis on that one. I don't think it's very popular among the Black community. Yeah, I just don't. Anyway, the conversation turns to Scott making music. Andy said his lyrics sound like confessions, and he ends up repeating some of them, and it's just basically talking about people in his DMs, and he gave it attention when he shouldn't have. So Scott said, you know, he was just being honest. He engaged with some of the people that came to his DMs, and he knows it was wrong and that he shouldn't have. And so they let him sing a little bit of his song. It was called Lost. And yeah, all I can say is, don't quit your day job, Scott. Oh, goodness. The contestant was happy though, baby. Her man, she was back there with her little phone like this, recording the screen. I guess that's all they were looking at was on screen. But anyway, so they end up bringing the women back with the men or whatever. And so we get snippets from over the season of just like all the things that the couples did together, like how they would get together and discuss Cecil and Simone's book, to the sex later on the couples trip, to some of the fights and arguments, to they even showed the clip of Toya saying that she never knew that Eugene's penis would not grow anymore after getting married. I said, oh. But Eugene keeps saying he's not embarrassed by the things she says. I just can't imagine that he's not. But he says he's not or whatever. So Andy's like, well, who here has the longest leash when it comes to the guys? So they all say Curtis, right? And then when he asks who has the shortest leash, Kieran gonna say me. And it ends up asking Quad, you know, why she thinks Toya was all in for having an open relationship. When the sex lady came to the retreat and was talking to them about what was it? How did she put it? Ethical monogamy. And so Quan said because Toya just laughed the entire time. So he asked her, he asked the wives, he asked the men, if the wives came to you about wanting to be in or have an ethical non-monogamy relationship, would they be into it right? So as we get Scott's answer, we don't hear nobody else really. And Scott was just like, no, it's too many attractive women that want his wife. I want to say it's probably too many attractive women that your wife wants. Oh, snap. But anyway, then she pipes up. She said, well, it could go both ways. It could be men too. And so Scott was just like, no, it would never be two men and one woman. Eugene said, oh, no, because that's called a train. Anyway, if you ask, what did the men not know about their wives before marriage, right? So Eugene said he didn't know that his wife's mouth would never close because basically Toya talked too much. That's what he was saying. So he goes on to say, I don't have a problem with, the size of my member. I never had a problem pleasing women. I'm not ashamed to take my clothes off. And Andy asked him, well, how does it make you feel when you hear your wife dish your manhood on your manhood on TV, right? And so Toya starts piping up. She trying to backpedal about saying his penis was little. And so she said, I didn't mean that. I just mean, I didn't know the sex will become lame. And I'm just like, don't call it lame. And so Contessa had to kind of come to her rescue. She was like, she doesn't mean lame. She means like predictable. It's just, it gets to be predictable. And Eugene, basically said he doesn't like it, but he understood what she was trying to say or whatever. So she did say that she had, meaning Toya, said she did have a talk with Eugene about what she said, because she realizes after she said it, how it may come across on the TV. So she had a conversation to him about it before it even ever aired, and she apologized to him for what she said. So Andy then asked Cecil, like, well, what's the top 3 things? Because, Cecil always has his list. What's the top 3 things you never want to hear your spouse say about you? So he says, 1, that your penis is not getting bigger. 2, that you don't have a job and you're not taking care of your family. And then the third one was that the sex is like, here goes Quad. Well, Toya, that's 2 out of 3 you've done. Quad, stop them folks, Mary. Stop trying to cause some conflict. So somebody wrote in, and it was just like a lot of the viewers just did not like how Toya would talk about Eugene, and said that Eugene must have a humiliation kink, a fetish, like he gets off on Toya humiliating him on TV. And so he was just like, first of all, no, because I would have to be embarrassed. So basically he was like, he's not embarrassed by it, And he said that he is also very vocal behind closed doors. So don't let the smile fool you. Quad said she thinks Eugene laughs things off, but that he really is hurting on the inside when Toya does or says these things. And Toya agreed with Quad. She said, that's true. And then Quad has to go on and say, Eugene, he's going to always clean up behind Toya. He on aisle 5 with the mop and the bucket and the broom. Oh, goodness. I said, Quad, girl, stop. So that sets Eugene off. And the rule is the men Do not get involved with the women, but here they are. So Eugene and Quan start going back and forth. Eugene said, your jokes are a lot worse than what anything that Toya has said. And so they bring up Quan calling this man Eugenia on her Twitter account. And then it just, from there, all hell breaks loose. It just, they going back and forth. Stay out of the women's business, Eugene. Right? That's the number one rule. And so I think, even though this was kind of, it was talking about Eugene. That's how the conversation started, right? Quan brought in her 2 cents, and she didn't shut up about it, right? Eugene should just let it go. Let Quan say what she gonna say. Keep it moving. Like, you just be comfortable in whatever you know the truth is. State it and keep it moving. But they end up going back and forth, right? So Eugene said, you claim you not in our marriage, but you keep saying all this stuff. And Quan was just like, I said what I said. He's like, well, what do you have against us? And she said nothing. He said, well, quit talking about us. And y'all, they were literally yelling. And she said, well, then you stop talking about me. And so Angie started to say, now, he trying to read to us what exactly she said on her Twitter, right? So he goes on to say, well, Quan, you said Quan didn't even let him finish. She interrupted, I know exactly what I said. Oh, yeah, what is really going on out there? Got me wondering. I'm going to have to go be that nosy neighbor in a minute. But anyway, Quan interrupted me. I know exactly what I said. And it was like, I know you know. I'm trying to read so the viewers would know. You know, Quan, well, tell the people. Oh, baby, that Eugene had got Quan hot. So, and he reads what Quan wrote, right? And she said something about, you know how Toya had made that package for Quan when she had her housewarming and put that t-shirt and Snuggie and all that in there. So Quan basically said she needs to make Eugenia a basket, and it needs to have a backbone, Cialis, Viagra, a penis pump. I said, oh, that is too much. Too much. Woo, child, that's too much. So they just set them off all over again, and they are back in. They back in it, y'all. Anyway, oh, goodness. Andy then brings up how Dr. Daddy, had tried to reconcile things between Heavenly and Contessa when they were at the dinner with Cecil and Simone, right? And how they just went wrong. They just went to hell and back. You know what I'm saying? Hell in the handbasket. And so Damon said, you know, I don't argue with the women. And he apologized to Contessa if he said anything to offend her back at that moment, you know. Contessa said, you know, well, why haven't you had us over for dinner? Why haven't you had all the 4 of us together for dinner? And he said, you know, that he's just been dealing with some personal things. And that although he's happy to do that, he doesn't do fake, right? And so Contessa's like, well, you could have brought us together before that moment. You know what I'm saying? And so Heavenly said he didn't know everything that was going on. But Contessa's point was that there were several moments before the cameras came that could have happened. Like, why wait till after the cameras to try to sit down and have us reconcile? And my point to that, Contessa, is you did the same shit. You know, why? First of all, why are you on it with Dr. Daddy about that. Like, he probably really did not know the extent that everything was going on. You know what I'm saying? Up at that point that you're talking about. And then it was just like, and why did you wait until the cameras came to make a big deal out of it? Because apparently, before the cameras, you weren't. You stopped speaking to Heavenly. Then the cameras came. Now you want to have this intervention and make this big deal out of it. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you gonna call him out about that, you gotta call yourself out too. So Heavenly said, you know, that she had texted and called Contessa several times before the cameras even came. And that she would just go back, like they would apologize, make up, and that Contessa would just go back to Quad and talk shit about her. So Kieran ends up jumping in and said, this question was for Dr. Damon. Contessa said, I don't care. Oh, goodness. See, this is why they just stay bickering. Because they don't have no respect for who talking or what. They just want to get their point across and then they end up over talking people. But anyway. And that's basically what Damon ended up just saying right there. Damon, he said, this is the point I'm trying to make. No one listens. No one listens. They don't show respect. Nobody knows. He be like, I'm a man. Nobody knows what's in my head because I never get the opportunity to speak. I never get the chance to finish what I'm trying to say, basically. And so Contessa said, what does it have to do with anything? I said, again, she cutting in and not giving him the floor to finish saying or making his point or whatever. They all do. They do. They just talk over one another. Nobody sits and just listens. Like he said, be an active listener. Don't listen to respond. You know what I'm saying? So Diamond basically was just like, you know, I don't battle. I don't battle. And so Andy said, you know, that's how he feels. Like, basically that they talk all over him. So then they come back to the whole thing where Heavenly said that Quad would come back and tell her what Contessa had told Quad. And so Quad is like, okay, well, tell me, what did I say, Heavenly? What did I say? Because she want to know what Heavenly was talking about specifically. And so Heavenly said, well, after the ambush, you know, Quad, you came back and told me that Contessa said that she meant exactly everything that she said, as far as when she had the ambush with the whole intervention and all that. And so Quad was just like, yeah, I did. She did say that. And then apparently, and Quad was like, and what else? So apparently there was also another incident where Contessa ended up telling Quad like everything that Heavenly had ever told Contessa that pertained to Quad. You know what I'm saying? And then when she was telling her, she was taking some things out of context. So supposedly it was like the big thing was that Heavenly was the one that started the rumor about Quad sleeping with the contractor, right? And Heavenly said, I didn't start that. I didn't. No, I didn't. So Scott ends up piping up. And so he was just like basically saying, you know, that he loves Heavenly, he loves Damon. And he said, but when he heard the things that Heavenly had said on her social media, that he felt like he was being kicked while he was down. Because, you know, he and Contessa were not in the best of places then, right? And so Heavenly ends up apologizing to Scott, you know, for making him feel that way. And so I think maybe as far as the two of them, I think for Scott, that was probably all he needed to hear, you know. But anyway, because that was pretty much all we got with that. Anyway, a viewer writes in and says, you know, he asked about Damon checking Dr. Heavenly, putting her in check when they had the dinner, you know. And wants to know if there's anything different within their marriage. Like, are they having any problems or whatever? So Damon was just like, no, absolutely not. He was just saying that that particular evening, he had worked, he was stressed with work stuff, and he just didn't basically want to deal with the mess. He was just like, I am human, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes, you just don't want to deal with this. It's too much. It's overwhelming, basically. So Andy asked Simone if we're seeing something new with Damon and Heavenly. And she said, no, they're just like any other normal couple. They go through things, and Heavenly ends up piping up, and she was telling Simone, like, I told you it was just too soon for you to get me and Contessa together. And Simone said, but we had left Vegas on a good note. Everybody was in a good space. And so she said that's why she felt it was okay to bring the two of them together for dinner. And Heavenly said, I told you before that if things go left, I need you to step in. And Simone said, I couldn't. Y'all was yelling. Heavenly said, you got a loud mouth too. And she ain't lying. I think Simone could have took both of them going back and forth in it. But anyway, Andy asks, do the women like seeing the guys' friendship and how close they are and how tight they are? So Contessa's like, love it. Love it. And so he asked the guys, do they have any advice for the women on how they can get their friendship to be similar to the guys, where they can be close and all that? And Damon just said they just need to get together, have real conversations so they can walk away with real solutions. Damon, great advice, but it ain't gonna work on them because they don't know how to sit down and listen to each other. We can see that they've tried that several times and it just ain't working. Sorry, not gonna happen. Something else needs to happen for them. So Quad said things get fixed for a moment, but then it happens over and over again. So now she's kind of referring to Heavenly without referring to Heavenly, if that makes sense. So she turns to Dr. Damon as she's saying these things. So, she's like, what do you think in that case? If somebody apologizes, but they're doing it over and over again. So Toya steps in, she does, and she kind of takes up for Heavenly pretty much, because she's just like, you know what? It's not just her. We all do it. And so Quad is still talking to Damon, though, and she's just like, well, what do you do in that instance? Like, what do you think? And so Heavenly gets too hot. She gets fat hot. And she telling Quad, that's enough. You don't talk to him. If you got a question, you address it with me. And I was just like, oh, Heavenly, touchy much. And so Quad's just like, no. I'm talking to him. Quad don't be giving two fucks about none of this. And so Heavenly said, nope, talk to me. And then Quad said, why? Cause I done screwed your man. That's why you don't want me to talk to him. And so Heavenly was like, please don't say that. Please don't say that, because the viewers, they just gonna take that and just run with it or whatever. So she said, out of respect for me, do not have that conversation with him. Have it with me. Leave my husband out of this. Andy said, well, what's wrong with Quad asking her questions to him? She may want his perspective. Heavenly was like, nope. And he ain't gonna answer. David was just sitting there looking the whole time like, oh. David looked so exhausted. Like, he was just over it, really. And so Andy said, well, I asked because I want to know his perspective. Heavenly was like, nope, he ain't gonna answer. Cecil was laughing the whole time, y'all. Cecil been getting a kick out of all this shit. Anyway, Damon ends up speaking up, and he was just like, he tells Andy, I'm a man. I'm not going to respect my wife, but I will answer any questions you have, And so Andy said, I just want to know your perspective on what Quad was saying about what do you do? How do you feel about somebody apologizing to you, but then turn around and do the same stuff over and over? So David said, he gives a very PC answer. He just, we all have to look at what we do. We all got homework to do and things we can do to improve ourselves. But of course, I'm not going to highlight what my wife does. That's my wife. And I'm going to always stand by her and support her. And I think that once Heavenly heard Dana's response to that, that kind of softened her. Like, because then she started back joking. You know what I'm saying? But she wasn't joking at first. She was legit mad. You could tell she was serious about that. But yeah, after that, she kind of started back joking. So the men leave, right? And the conversation continues with, as Andy liked to call it, married to medicine after dark. So we see all the clips from over the season with them talking about sex. We see them at the strip club. We see them getting them old shots. We see them at the sex store when they were in Vegas. So Quad even admits that she's brought along a few toys with her for that particular trip. Then some kind of way they get on when they were in Vegas and they were in the limo and Anila was laughing and she peed on herself. Y'all remember that? So they get on there, and so Anila was saying since then that somebody has contacted her about wearing some incontinence panties or pads or something. And so she's now being sponsored by them to advertise them on her platform or whatever. So Jackie lets us know that that's actually how the O shot originated. You know, it helps to increase your tingles and your stuff like that when having sex, but it was created for incontinence issues or whatever. So they asked Heavenly if she's told Damon about the strip club or whatever. Heavenly said no. And she was like, and I know it's a double standard, but I didn't. And she said she didn't because she feels like men get turned on when they go to the strip club, but when the women go, it ain't nothing like this. She said she didn't get turned on. She didn't even really like it. She was offended. But baby, that footage said something different. And then she gonna say, well, Jackie and Toya had sex that night. And so we see a flashback of Toya trying to give Jackie a lap dance. Here you go, Jackie. Now that is Heavenly deflecting. And they all laugh. So that was a little comic relief right there. So then with they get on them having the or playing the Never Have I Ever game, right? That was when they first made it to Vegas. And they were playing the Never Have I Ever. And so one of the questions was, never have I ever cheated on my boyfriend or something to that effect. And so Quad answered with, my cup runneth over. So Andy wants to know, has she ever cheated or whatever? And Quad's just like, yeah, you know, when I'm dating, that's what I'm doing. I'm dating until we both agreed to be in a monogamous relationship, basically. And so then they bring up the never have I ever had backdoor sex, right? And so Anila was just like, that her mom got up to her about saying that on TV, as well as her talking about she does 69. So they get on how some of the doctors get weird pictures. You remember that came up at that time too, like who I think it was Jackie that said she gets text of pictures of penises and all that. So Andrew was like, is that true? And she was just like, yeah. He was like, why are they doing that? You know? And so I think Simone was the one that chimed in like, yeah, it actually happens. They're wanting to know if this is right, if this is normal, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. So we're coming to an end, right? So Andy's kind of like just going around the room, getting the last thoughts from each lady. each lady, right? And so Heavenly, she said that she's good with all the ladies, basically, except for Dr. Contessa, of course. She said that she and Simone, they've come, they've had a lot of improvement with their relationship. She said she also is in a better place with Toya, and hope that, or she has a better understanding of Toya after just talking with Simone some, and that she hopes that they can get in a better place. And Contessa just said, some people rose to the top this season, and some people sunk to the bottom. And y'all know who she was referring to when she said that. Quad said she's feeling good about the group for the most part, and that she and Toya are in a rough place, but she feels vindicated. And we later on learned that when she said she felt vindicated, she was talking about from the rumor of her supposedly cheating with her contractor or whatever. Anila said, she ends up apologizing to Toya yet again about the rumor, and that she wants to move forward. Toya said she has a forgiving heart, but that it's hard for her to trust some of the ladies on the platform, and that her family is in a very vulnerable place right now, especially with her boys being at the critical age they are in. And I get that, I really do, especially at that age. They're old enough now to understand, the things that are happening around them, and that would, I can imagine, put them in an awkward place, like, well, do I like this person or do I not? Because they're saying this, that, and the other. You know what I'm saying? So I can get that, what she's saying. You know what I'm saying? Jackie says she wants to grow some of the relationships, and that she's glad that the Golden Girls are back together again. We know that's her, Simone, and Heavenly. Simone said that each of them have to make the decision to come to the table with their best self, forgive and let go. And they do, included Simone. And then Andy ends with a couple of half-naked men coming out with some with some glasses of champagne so they can toast to the season. And the men, all the husbands, are off to the side like, wait a minute now, you get a little too cozy with these naked men or whatever. So anyway, they toasting. The half-naked men out there doing their thing. They got money guns going. And they're dancing to Scott's song. Jackie ends with the last words. Great friends, good times, forgiveness, growth, and developing better friendships. And that was the end, y'all. So, good season. I enjoyed it. And until next time, y'all, that's all I got. I'll pray for y'all. Y'all please pray for me. And what? Peace out.